right, perfect. So let's begin. Welcome to this seminar. This is the second seminar that we are doing to relate to the launch of the CYPE 2023 version. My name is Afonso Solac. I'm civil engineer. I work for the software development department at CYPE. Okay, I'll be here today with you in this section. Today, June 15. Okay, so this is the second section that we are doing. Yesterday we started this cycle of webinars with the first section, CYPE 2023, the main new features and enhancements that were implemented in this new release. Okay, so yesterday it was an overview. We saw a little bit about everything, about architecture softwares, structures, MEP, project management, open BIM quantities, CYPE architectures, CYPE CAD, CYPE 3D, CYPE plumbing. We saw different topics from different softwares. And today we will see a little bit more about one of the new features that we implemented in our software. That is one type of format that we can export and then use this format to connect with tools that are used to render models. Okay, so we will create today an example connecting some models created with CYPE with Twinmotion to render these models created at CYPE at Twinmotion. Okay, this is our idea today. As happened yesterday, today we have three sections, two in English, one at 9 a.m., another one at 8:30 p.m., and another a third section at 12 that is in Spanish, always in the Central European Standard or summertime. So if you are depending on the part of the globe you are, you can choose the best time for you. And we are also recording this presentation, so in a few days you can look for these presentations in our YouTube channels. You can look for CYPE International on YouTube to find content in English, CYPE software to content in French or Spanish, and CYPE Brazil or Top Informatica to find content in Portuguese. Okay, so you can find more videos and also these webinars on YouTube in the next days. Okay, next week we have two other seminars. So on Tuesday 21st we will have a webinar to show the new features in the interoperability between CYPE architecture, CYPE CAD, CYPE Connect. It means between the architectural model and the structural model. In this case, if we are talking about CYPE Connect, we are talking about steel connections or wooden connections or wooden elements with steel connections, let's say that. So we'll see the new features in this workflow with an example, and we'll finish this cycle on Wednesday 22nd with a seminar that we called BIM for Landscape Design and Architecture, where we will see how to work with the tool that we will use today. So today we have a surface, a terrain in our model. So this terrain was created with our tools, with Open BIM Site, that is the name of the tool. And in this seminar on June 22nd, we will see more details about how to work with this tool. Actually, this tool was launched in the past year, but during this year, we increased the number of options that we have in the application. So I think it's a good way to do this webinar and present to you how it works. Okay. So I invite you to join us on those seminars, or to search for the seminar of yesterday if you didn't have the opportunity to be with us. So this is the idea of these webinars 2023 from June 14 to June 22nd. Okay, let's begin. I think in this seminar I will need a lot of resources in my computer because we will do a lot of renders. You see the quality of these models. So I think it's a good option to deactivate my camera just to save some resources. Okay, so let's jump to our softwares. So here I have Open BIM Site, okay, the software I was telling before, and also I have here CYPE Architecture, okay. Both softwares are running in my computer at this moment. Actually, this new feature was implemented in almost all softwares of CYPE. So all those softwares that have a 3D environment or 3D working environment like this one, where you can see your BIM model, you can rotate, you can orbit, you can zoom, you can change your model, have this new feature. Okay, in some places we'll see this interface here in the main window or the main interface of the software. Sometimes it's gonna be inside of a button. Normally this button is in this area, and it's a 3D model button or something like that. You can click on that and then you see this 3D environment. So this we'll use today this architectural model with a terrain as our example, but we can combine different information, different geometries from different softwares, and then export everything and render everything together. Okay, so this example is just architecture and terrain, but could be architecture plus structure plus plumbing plus HVAC plus electrical facilities, so everything together to render a model. So I think the process would be similar with these models today. I think it's a good example to understand how it works. Okay, so as I said before, both programs were used to create to reach this result here. Okay, if we change again to OpenBIMsite, you see that it's the same. Actually, here in OpenBIMsite we can see the levels here, the contour lines. Okay, so the idea of the software is to generate these surfaces. There are different ways to create these topographic surfaces, or we can even add buildings and parcels and more information. We can define the latitude, longitude, and altitude of the model. We can geolocalize this model. So different information related to the site or the position, the environment of our project. We can manage here at OpenBIMsite, and as always, we can connect this model to a project at the BIMserver.center platform, and using the buttons share and update, we can send and receive information from one software to another. So here the topography or the surface was exported to CYPE Architecture, and in CYPE Architecture we exported the building to OpenBIMsite. So they are combined at this moment, and then if you want to change something, we can change and then just update the information, and everything will be updated using this button here. Okay, so that's how it works. I'm pretty sure that you already know, because we always do this process in our system, but eventually if someone is new here, it's discovering CYPE for the first time, this is the system that allows us to send and receive information from one software to another. Okay, here inside of CYPE Architecture, if you have been with us yesterday in our first presentation, you saw that this new menu here, it's now available. So it's a new feature of the 2023A, and here we can see that we have one layer of information that is the land topography that we can activate and deactivate. Okay, the land topography that was exported from OpenBIMsite, but I have been working a little bit more in this project, and I also created, let me deactivate here some layers. I also created this other layer with CYPE 3D in this case, that is the wooden structure, the structural elements of our project. Okay, so here actually we have three types of information. Information is created with OpenBIMsite, is information created with CYPE 3D, and all the layers that are specific from CYPE Architecture that we are working here. Okay, if I change to OpenBIMsite, here we'll see something similar. So here I have here a model that is the architectural model. In this case, the structure is not synchronized, so I cannot see, but I could update and select it. Okay, I just didn't select it. So yeah, here we can activate and deactivate, and here we can edit the information of the topography. Okay. So what's the main concept that we must know to connect these models that are created here at CYPE with a render tool as Twinmotion or any other render tool? The main idea is every color or every texture that we add here in our models, okay, every color like that, then in the render tool will select this color and change the appearance, change the texture, change the lights, change the shadows of these colors. Okay, so here we must follow some good practices. For example, to have a better result when we are rendering, or to have a easier work when we are processing these models in our render tool. Okay, so of course you could create your model here and have everything in white color or gray color, but if you do that, when you connect it with a render tool, it's going to be very difficult to select every element and change the color of every element. So it's going to be easier to create your model and classify it with colors or textures that you think that are the colors that better represent your project, and then export it to your render tool, and there you just have to select these colors and it's going to be much easier. Okay, before we start doing that, let me show you here in CYPE Architecture how you can set the colors, how you can create your colors, how you can assign a color to an element. Okay, so for example, here inside of the Architecture tab, we have the colors menu here. Okay, we have this colors menu here, and in this button you can see a list of colors. So it's here where we create the colors. So in this project I created a lot of colors, some colors that I called railings or frames or walls, so colors that I use it to the column, to the walls, to the roofs, to the doors, to the frames. But in some places I created the glass, the bricks, the wood, the tiles, the ceramics, the stone. Okay, the name, it's something that I can define. I can personalize this name. Okay, and you can see that for each name, for each line that we have here, we have the color column and the texture column. Okay, so let's create an example here. Let's create a new color. I'll say that this is that. Let's suppose it's a brick, for example, a color that represents a brick. My new brick, let's call that. Okay, so this brick, I'll select a color here, for example, brown, or something here that is near to orange, maybe. I don't know, something like that. Okay, that could be a color that represents a brick facade or a brick wall. Okay, and if I want, I can also assign a texture to this color that we created. So I can click here and select one texture between the different textures that we have here in the library. Let's suppose, for example, this texture or this one. I think this one. Okay, it's nice here that we can inspect this element here, and we can change the scale factor. For example, we can make these bricks bigger, or I don't know, smaller. Okay, according to our preference, we can change this factor here and change the size of the pattern of our texture. Okay, once we define which format we have, which texture we have, we accept, and this texture will be assigned to this color. Okay, we can also change the opacity. Here you can see that the glass, it's actually a blue color with an opacity of 20%, so we will see something transparent. It's a nice way to create glass here in CYPE Architecture. Okay, so this is how we can create the colors. Okay, the colors that we will use here in the Architecture tab. So it means that we will apply these colors to different walls, to curtain walls, to roofs, to railings, to columns, or maybe to different types of slabs, roofs. Okay, all the construction elements that we have in our project, the colors of these construction elements will come from this library that we create here. Okay, in furniture we have something similar. The difference is the unique difference is the colors are inside of each element. Depending on the type of element, you have one or more fields with different colors. For example, this chair have 3 colors, so we can change the color here. Okay, you can also open the same option here. You can change the color here. So here is more specific. Each element will have different number and type of colors, but you just have to open the element and change the color, and it's you set that color. It's very easy. Okay, coming back here to the Architecture tab, how can we add a color to one element of our BIM model? How can you assign this color to our model. We have two ways to do that. The first way, it's a manual way. Okay, it's using this button here. So you can click here, click in one specific element. Let's suppose this element, and then according to the type of element, you have two or more faces of this element. For example, the wall have two faces, the internal and the external faces, or the face 1 and face 2. Okay, and you can select between those colors that we created here. Okay, for example, my new brick color that we created, you can select the color that you want, accept, and then it's gonna change. Okay, so it's how you assign one specific color to one part of your model. This is, as I said before, this is a manual way to add something. Of course, you can add this color to a group of content, for example, selecting different contents. But this color, it's, how can I say, it's not connected to the system of your model. What it means, if you must change this color now, and if you had added this color to different points of your model, you must add one by one, point by point, clicking and editing the content. So it's not connected. So it's why I say that this is the manual way. It's nice for some little adjustments or some moments when you have to change some specific points. But the best way to add color to the elements, it's using the types. Okay, the types, we use the types to create a library of construction elements. That could be a library of walls, of curtain walls, of railings, of slabs, of columns, of doors, different construction elements. And for each one of these construction elements, inside of it, you can set the color. Okay, so this construction element that we created with this name have this color, so I can change the color here. Okay, both faces in this case. And then when we accept, all those elements that were introduced in our model that are classified as this type, okay, will be updated, because this is a characteristic of our type. Okay, the color is one of the properties of our type, so it's inside of our type. Okay, so that's a better way to create your model considering the colors. Okay, here we have a shortcut. We can open the same library, and if you need to add a new color or change something, you don't need to come back and open the menu that we saw before. So here you can open, change, accept, and then you can select the color inside of your types. Okay, so this is a good practice. I recommend you to use always the types, because it's going to be everything easier when you create the types, not just here when we are talking about renders, when we are talking about graphic information, about drawings, but when you are creating your model, thinking about structural calculation, thermal simulations, acoustic simulations, view of quantities, all those disciplines that we can develop using this architectural model. It's going to be easier if we have the types created in our project. It's a way to classify our elements, and then it's going to be much easier in the future. Okay. Another thing we must know about this connection with Twinmotion, in this case a good practice, it's important to know the units of your project. So in this case, I'm using meters as units. So here you can change it by clicking here. But if you change, when you import it on Twinmotion, you must pay attention on that to be sure that you are importing the same unit. So just to know the units you are using here at CYPE Architecture, you have this button here, the globe button, in the menu units. Okay, so it's how you can, here in menu units, here you can consult the units you are using. Another detail that I think it's important, it's the origin of your project. Okay, if I jump to OpenBIM it's going to be easier to show you. Here you can see that the origin that is represented by these three arrows with this red, blue and green arrows, it represents the origin of your project. It's important. I think it's going to be easier, at least it's not important, but it's going to be easier if you have your building or your model near to the origin of your project, if it's possible. Okay, because maybe you have the origin far. Let's suppose the origin is somewhere here, and when you need to orbit or find or zoom when you are in Twinmotion, if the origin is too far, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. So my recommendation is that you always work with the origin near to your building. Although this is a normal situation in almost all projects, we place the building near to the geolocalization point, or a 000 point that is our reference. So if you I just recommend you to check this aspect before you start exporting to a render tool. Okay, if you don't know how to change the origin, let's imagine that by mistake you start modeling at CYPE architecture without taking account this aspect. So you can select everything using this button here, the move button. So let's suppose I select everything that is here. Then you, with the right click, you can confirm it's going to be everything on orange. You can select one point that's going to be the reference you want to have. Let's suppose I would use this one. Then you can move everything, okay? And if you habilitate this button here, the coordinate introduction, you have this window. And in this window, using the absolute coordinates, you can add a 0 for X, 0 for Y, and 0 for Z. And pressing the enter button of your keyboard, everything is going to be displaced to this point. So with this option, you can be sure that everything is near the origin or at the origin of your project. So it's a good practice. Be sure that you have this situation before export. Okay, nice. So let's begin here. Let me see if we have any other recommendation before we start exporting. I think it's everything okay. Let's do let's do an example using exporting two files. Okay, we'll create two files. We could create one file with everything, but I will choose to separate in two files. One file, for example, just for the terrain, and then another file that's going to be just for the building. Okay, just to show you that this is possible. Maybe there are two people working with different softwares, and each people can export one part, or maybe because the model is too complex and it's going to be better to work with different models. Okay, depending on the situation. So this is a very simple model, but I would like to show you how to export in different files and then import everything into Twinmotion. Okay, just to show you the both ways. Okay, so I will start creating one file that is going to be just the terrain. To do that, I will deactivate everything that was created here at CYPE architecture, and also the structure that was imported from CYPE 3D. And then we have just the terrain that is here. Okay, with this file, I will use this button here. Okay, this button, actually all these buttons here and all those buttons that are here, we also have in other softwares. If I jump again to Open BIM site, okay, here you see the same buttons and the same buttons here, and also the same button that is here. In CYPE CAD we have it, and CYPE 3D, in CYPE Plumbing, Open BIM Construction Systems, Open BIM Layout, every software that have this 3D environment, as I said before, have these tools, and you always find this button. So as you can synchronize everything and download everything to one of the softwares, it does not matter the discipline of the software. You can visualize all the model with all the federated layers of your model in all the softwares. Always you can export the BIM model with all the files, with all the layers using this tool. Okay, so we are using here CYPE architecture, but you could use CYPE Plumbing or CYPE CAD or Open BIM site. Okay, I will use CYPE architecture because I use also CYPE architecture as a tool in my daily tasks, so I can download everything here. I have this this practice, so I prefer to download everything to CYPE architecture. So I will use that. So I'll click here, and here we can export different formats. So DXFs, DWGs, different types of pictures, and the new feature that was introduced now in 2023A, it's the FBX format. Okay, so this FBX format, it's going to be the format that we use to connect with render tools. So most render tools in the market can import this FBX format. So it's a very very flexible format. It's a format that is very light too. So this is the format that we use to connect with Twinmotion. Okay, so I'll export one file. I will create here a new folder in my desktop. Let's suppose this folder, it's called render, and let's create a new folder inside it that we will call FBX, for example. Okay, and inside of the FBX, I will export one file that it's gonna be the terrain.fbx. Okay, this is the first file. Let's export. It was very fast, it's already exported. If we jump here to the render folder that we created, inside of FBX, you find the terrain that we created. And if you are using Windows 10 or Windows 11, there is a 3D viewer that is a free viewer that you can use to open this 3D model. Okay, so here it's a very light model actually, so you can open here also in Windows without having any BIM software, any CAD software, any software. So it's just a viewer a native viewer that is available at Windows. Okay, so we made it with the terrain. Let's do the same with the building. Okay, so let's come back to CYPE Architecture, and here at CYPE Architecture, let's habilitate the structural elements, because maybe part of the structure is visible inside of the building, so it's gonna be nice to see some beams. It's part of the project, part of the concept of this cottage, this house. Let's deactivate the topography, and let's activate all the layers that we created here at CYPE Architecture. Okay, so here we have all the layers. Okay, before we start, let me show you some details here. For example, as you can see here inside of the windows, you can see this red color or this pink color, this salmon color. It happens because if we deactivate, for example, here the walls, you see that there are some elements here. For example, it's purple, here it's pink. Okay, these elements represent the spaces that we have inside of this building. So these spaces were created using these tools here, and they are very useful, for example, to see the areas that we have here in each element and the total surface area. And they are very useful to, when we export this BIM model to BIMserver.center, to generate, for example, an analytical model, to run a simulation, an acoustic simulation, for example, or a thermal simulation. Or we can use these spaces to quantify all the finishes of these spaces using open BIM quantities to a bill of quantities, for example. Or we can use these spaces to I don't know, to set other parameters related to fire protection depending on the type of building. So these spaces are a kind of element that are very important. It's something that we use a lot in our projects. But here in this case, when we are talking about renders, when we are talking about graphical information, these spaces, the color that represent these spaces, they are not necessary to our renders. So I will not export the spaces, because we will not use it in the future when we are in the render. So I will deactivate the spaces, and let me activate again the walls, and here we have our model. Okay. Another aspect that I think it's nice of this workflow is that we can mix things that we have here in CYPE Architecture or in CYPE and things that we have in Twinmotion. For example, maybe we can use some textures that we created here in CYPE Architecture as the final texture. Maybe we can change some of them for textures that we find in the Twinmotion library. Maybe we can use some elements that we have here, for example, some furniture that we introduced using the furniture from CYPE Architecture, and just change the texture of this furniture. Maybe we can add more furniture using the library that there is inside of Twinmotion. So we can mix this. We can use. And to do an example about that, I will deactivate the trees that we have here. I use the trees that we have at Twinmotion, but I will use, for example, the furniture that we have here at CYPE Architecture, just to show you that we can mix the objects. So the trees I would deactivate. And now I have the model that I would like to export to Twinmotion. It does not matter the angle or the view that you are using to export, because we are not exporting a 2D file. We are not exporting a JPG or a PNG. So we are exporting a 3D model. So it doesn't matter the view or the angle that you choose. So let's export that. Let's change the name. Let's export as the building, for example. This one, it's a little bit bigger, but it's not that big. So if we see here, the terrain, it's very, very small. And the building, it's just 17 megabytes. It's not that big. Okay, so it's a very light format. And we have here both files, two files that were exported in FBX format. Okay. All right, so let's jump to Twinmotion. Okay, this is the main interface of Twinmotion. Okay, I'm using the 2022.1.2. Okay. Before we start in this part of the webinar, I just would like to say that this is not a specific class of Twinmotion or a specific render class. Okay, we are not pretending to show you the advanced techniques of render. The idea of this seminar is just show you the path that you have, the way, this workflow to connect CYPE with render tools. We are using Twinmotion today. Maybe in future presentations we can show other examples with other tools. Okay, so I will spend here maybe 30 minutes or something like that to create our renders. You see that the results are very good, but when we are talking about renders, as more time we input in our render process, more realistic, better results we will have. So here the idea is just to show you the process, but not do everything that we can do, or add or classify or change every element, because the process will be the same almost always. So that's just one comment I should I prefer to do this comment now, just I think it's important because that's not the idea of this seminar. Okay, so let's start. I will open here one of the menus that we have. There are three main menus in the software. This one is the first, it's the library. Okay, so you can open and close this menu. Here we can find materials, vegetation, objects, lights, characters, vehicles. Okay, then we have another one, something like this, that is in this side. You can also open and close. Here we will see the different layers of our project. Here we will see the files that we import. Here we can activate and deactivate these different layers. And here in the bottom we have the tools that we will need to define the control, the context, export, the information, the settings of our project. We use a lot these tools that are here in the bottom of the page. Okay, so let's start importing some files, those files that we created. So we use this button here. I open the location and let's import, for example, the building. Let's import the terrain. Okay, so I will import the terrain. So here is imported. You can see here that the FBX file called terrain was imported. Okay, let me save this project. Let's save in the same place that we created. So this is gonna be the Twinmotion files, for example. So this is it's just a demo. Okay, so let's save it. And as you can see here in our files or in our layers, we can now see the terrain also here. If we select it and use the right button of our mouse, we can zoom to the selection and we can see the terrain. Okay, the terrain that was imported, in this case generated with OpenBIMsite. Okay, we can move this terrain, we can rotate this terrain. Okay, different ways to move this terrain. And in this case, we will not need to think about that, because everything was well located at CYPE. So we know that the building is in the right place, in the right altitude. So everything is well connected. But maybe if you have a problem with your models, you made a mistake with the location of your project, you can move it here. Okay, let me undo this three movements that we made. Let's maintain the original place. And as you can see, by default, the program have one terrain or one ground that is called the starting ground here. So you can activate and deactivate this terrain. Okay, if you don't have this surface or this terrain that you created with OpenBIMsite, you can use maybe this starting ground. In our situation, this model, the green model, it's much more precise. It could be actually the real topography of this site, because OpenBIMsite permit us to import the real topography. So I will use the green topography, the green surface. So I will delete the default terrain that was here. Okay. So we have the terrain. Let's import now the building. Okay, the building. Let's do the same process. Let's open the building. And now that we have the building, in the building we have different materials. In the terrain it was just one, the green color or the grass, as depends we want to pretend it is. Okay, so but here in the building we have different materials. So those materials that we created with CYPE architecture. And here we have some things that we can set before we import. And in this option, the collapse option, I recommend you to use this option here, collapse by material. With this option, we will group all those elements that were created in CYPE architecture by material. Okay, so for example, if we have a window and we have three windows, and those three windows have the same material, here we will have just one instance of that. It means that when we want to change the color of that material of that window, we must change one time and not three times. So it's going to be much easier. You have much less elements to work. So this is a good option. I always use this option here. You can also change here the up axis or the unit conversion, but maintaining the auto works well. So I always use these options, and it's perfect. So let's import the building. And here it's the building in the exact place that we located at CYPE architecture. Okay. You can also see here that now we have the terrain and the building. When we click in one of these elements, okay, so for example, if I click on the building, when I orbit, I will orbit around the element that is selected here. Okay, so for example, if I click, I don't know, in those sofas, now I'm orbiting around the sofas, not around the whole the building. Okay, or in this element, around this element. Okay, so it's how it works. And you can also see that inside of the terrain we have one layer, one mesh, the only mesh that we imported, that is the green mesh created with CYPE architecture. But inside of the building we have a lot of meshes, one mesh for each material. Okay, so if we select here, we can see that in the model it's highlighted the element that have this mesh or this material or this color. Okay, so here you can see these different meshes, and these meshes are exactly the colors that we created here at CYPE architecture. Okay, the colors that we created here and that were assigned to something in our model. Okay, so if we just created here but didn't use it, we will not see that on Twinmotion. Okay, we must have this color in our model. Okay, so the names that you define here, the way that you use these colors affects in the way that you receive this information at Twinmotion. Okay, with one of these meshes we can activate or deactivate this mesh. For example, let's deactivate this layer and this layer, and then you can inspect your model. You can create a specific view. You can hide an element that you don't want to show using these buttons here. Okay, it's pretty similar to that we saw before at CYPE architecture, so you can hide, but you can also delete this information. Let's suppose that some elements were exported by mistake and you don't want to use that element because it's too big or it's too complex or you don't need it. You can also delete something here. In our case, the job was well done in the previous phase, so we will use everything that is here. But let's imagine, for example, that the spaces that we didn't export were here. We could, for example, deactivate or hide the spaces or delete the spaces depending on the size or the type of this information. Okay, so now we know how to import the elements. Let's create something here. Okay, the first thing I would like to create is change the background. I don't like this background. It's not nice. Okay, so let's change it. To do that, I will use here the settings menu. Okay, but I think it's important we set a nice location to this place, because the location, the latitude and longitude of this model will define how the shadows and the lights work here. So let's define a location and set the time of the day. Okay, so here you can see that you can set the time of the day to export information. We can set also the month, okay, according to the position of the sun in the sky. So we have different situations. And here there's a map, and we have a pin, this blue pin that we can move. Let's suppose we have a model here in a city in Alaska. Let's imagine there is a city. Let's imagine there is a city somewhere here. Let's find a city, a nice city, maybe here. Yes, here we have some city here, like in Kenai, for example. Let's put our model here, somewhere here, in a place in the mountains near Kenai. So with this movement, we are telling to the software what is the latitude and the longitude, and it will affect in our colors and shadows and all the parameters related to these lights of our project. Okay, maybe if the north was not well defined, we can also change the north. Okay, you can see here that the arrow that represents the north changes according to this parameter that we have here. Okay, so in most cases we have this information well defined before, but if you want, you can change the north too. Okay, with the lights or the position of our project well defined, I have the caution to save after some minutes, just to you see that the software do a lot of things, but I prefer to save it. So let's change the background. So the background now, it's this picture. It's a city picture, could be a town picture or a countryside or a waterfront or European city, different pictures that are by default here in the software. I prefer to leave without any picture, just a simple background, because we will create our own background here. Okay, so yeah, I'll leave that like that, and we will add more geometry in the background to create more mountains. One option could be duplicate these mountains and add copies of this surface in the background. It's one way. Actually, what's important to us is this part here, the surface that's near to the building, because this is the part that is that's going to be inside of our scenes. So this is the real topography that we created with OpenBIMsite. In the background, we just need some elements to complement our scenes. I will use here inside of these options one option inside of landscapes that is called the Rocky Grasslands landscapes. I will just drag and drop these options to our scene, and we will add some mountains that are available here in the library of Twinmotion. So let's add these mountains. Let's wait a little bit. Yeah, here we have the mountains, and as you can see here, we have a new file, a new layer here. That's the Rocky Grasslands layer, and now we have a little bit more realistic situation. So we have the mountains from our model, and then the mountains that were added in this fake model, fake mountains that we add to complement the scene. Okay, the colors are different, the textures are different, so we must mix these appearances to have a nice effect. And so let's use some textures and add the same texture in both surfaces. So for example, here in the materials tab, inside of the ground options, in the nature options, we have some grass. Okay, so let's drag and drop the grass here. Of course, it's too big, the size of these elements, so let's change the element here. So maybe you can add the number directly here, and And to the other one, we can do the same. The other geometry have more than one texture. There are 4 textures to create this topography. So let's change one of them, for example this one, to the same that we used in the first topography. Now we have something similar. It's gonna be nicer. So we have this homogeneous, so you cannot see where the first topography finishes and when the second starts. So I think it's a good mix of 2 topographies and to create our scene. Okay. Another step that I think it's nice here is to add some, for example, some vegetation. Okay. So let's create here some vegetation, or maybe we can add some water. For example, here there is a depression. We can see that topography, the original topography that has this slope. So let's add here some effects, some water effects. Okay, so I will enable the water. The water by default it's in a height of 1 meter. We can change it. So for example, let's put it a little bit more. We can change this parameter here. We can also use our keyboard to add it with more precision. Let's suppose minus 0.7. Oh, sorry, minus 0.7, for example. I think it's a good lake here. Okay, you can see that the water adjusts to the topography that we created with OpenBIM Sight, so it's very natural. Here we can change the appearance of that. For example, changing the color of the water. There are different colors here. I think this one, maybe it's gonna be the river one. It's gonna be nice here. Okay. So now we have here some colors, some water. Okay. And let's add some trees, for example. Okay, some trees. To add the trees, I use this button here, the context, and I use this option here, the Vegetation Paint. Okay, so I will drag here to these trees. I will create a combination between trees and grass, for example. So I will add here some trees, 3 types of trees that I think it's common in Alaska. Okay, and then I will add also some grass to the ground. Let's see here the grass and flowers. For example, let's add some wild grass, for example, and some clovers, for example. And with this combination, I can use this vegetation paint, set a diameter, okay, and then I can start painting and adding trees in our background. I will not add in all the topography. I don't need that because the scenes will be very close to our building. So here in these mountains behind the house, I will add these elements. Maybe near the lake here in these places, let's just rotate here just to have something more realistic. Maybe somewhere here, some of them inside of the water, doesn't matter. Okay, and as you can see, we included, let's add more here. We easily included here vegetation to our project, okay, to our renders. To complement that, I will add manually some other bushes, for example. So, for example, some bushes here. Let's add some bushes here, some bushes here. Maybe we can add a little bit more grass. So we use this grass here. So yeah, let's add some grass. We can add other elements. For example, let's add some rocks, for example. So let's add a rock here, rock there. We can add another rock there. I don't know. Maybe one rock near the water, and this is too small. Let's use this one again, so we can add it near the water somewhere like here, something like that, for example. A little bit inside of the water. I think it's gonna be nice. Okay, just to create a scene. Okay, there is another way to introduce grass that I think it's nice. So also here in the context tab, you can use the Vegetation Scatter. So you also select a combination of grass and then you select and use this button and select one surface. For example, the surface created with OpenInsight, and you click, and you have a lot of grass with this combination in your model. Okay. As you can see, you also have grass inside of your building because the surface it's under the building, so that is no sense. So let's erase those elements there, those pieces of grass that are inside of the building using this tool. So we can change here the diameter of the tool and clean inside of the building, a little bit inside of the building, and now we don't have any grass, or we shouldn't have, okay, inside of the building. Now we have the contest. Let's say we have the contest. So let's change some details that can be interesting. For example, let's start changing the appearance of the materials that we have in our model. Okay, although the materials that we have here, they are very nice in this default view, you must understand that this view that we have here, it's realistic, but when we export these files, it's gonna be much more realistic. Okay, this is just a preview of what we will see when we export this information. Okay, so maybe the first test that you can do when we are creating your render is try to export the values that you have by default and see what result you have, and maybe then in a second time you can change something, because maybe some materials that you import are good enough to the result you want. Okay, so in this case I will start changing some materials of our building. Okay, so here in the materials tab I will start, for example, changing the roof. So here there is a roof. There are different kind of roof colors here, roof textures. So I'll grab the roof and I will grab and drag and I will grab and I put this roof here, and as you can see, the tiles are not in the right position and they are too small. So I can change the scale, for example. Let's create bigger tiles, for example, and I can change, apply a rotation, 90 degrees, for example. Yeah, the red one, it's nice. Red one, it's nice, but I would like to try, for example, a gray one. Let's see a gray one. Maybe this one, or I don't know, this one. This one, let's try this one. Let's zoom in. The same situation, I have to change the size, maybe, and change the rotation. Yeah, I think this one's a little bit better to this kind of house. Okay, let's change also the tiles that we have here, these ceramic tiles. Let's create something more realistic. So to do that, I will use here some tile elements, this one, for example, and let's look for a tile, ceramics, different types of ceramics, concrete. I'll try with this one. So I will drag and drop here. I will change the scale again, looking for a size that it's better for my project. And in this case, I will also change the color. Okay, I will change the color of the, looking for a ceramic color, for example, maybe this one. So I can combine. I can also change the way if it reflects the light. Okay. So yeah, here we have some ceramics. Inside of our kitchen, let me see if we can see the kitchens. Inside of our kitchens, we also have the same material. Okay, here. So once we change it outside, as is the same material, inside of the kitchen was also changed. Is that phenomenon that I said of collapse by material. Okay, so we that's the process. Let's change those stones, for example. Let's change the stones. So here we'll find materials. Let me see here. Where are the stones? Where are the stones? Stones, leather. Should be some stones here. Different types of stones. I'll try with this one. Let's change the scale. No, I don't like it. Let's try another one. Maybe this one that is a little bit more rustic. Yeah, this one, it's nice. I will use this one. Okay, let's change these bricks. These bricks, I'll select some brick. Here are different types of bricks. I don't know, maybe this one, this one, this one, this one. This is two. This is not nice. Yeah, I'll use this one. I'll put the brick. I'll change here the size of the brick. No, it's not okay. This one maybe. These bricks, and as you can see here, we have this flashing element here. It's actually the front face of this slab that is here, because when we created this model, we modeled this slab in a place where two surfaces are coincident. So we have the one face of the wall that is coinciding with in the same place with one face or the front face of this slab. We should correct that on our model. Okay, the good practice would correct that in our model, but in this case we have a trick. We can pick the color that we included here and we can drag it to that element, and then we cannot see that surface. Okay, let's change here some finishes, or this wooden work that we have here. We have different woods, so let's use here let's just save again, and let's change some wood. Let's begin, for example, changing the floor. Then let's use this maple to change here, for example, the suspended ceilings. Let's change the size, for example. Then let's change, for example, the stairs. Let's see if we can find a nice color to the stairs. Let's see one solid wood here. I don't know, let's try with this guy here, for example. Let's use this color to change here, maybe with a scale with rotation of 90 degrees. Okay, these elements here, maybe we can add another one, for example this guy here with another scale. This is the point that I said before, that I'm just showing some examples. I will not do for everything, because the process is similar. Okay, this is the process. There is no secrets here. Okay, let's change, for example, for a ladder, this purple sofa created with CYPE architecture. Let's change for a brown ladder, for example. And this part that is metallic, let's add some aluminum or some metal work, brushed aluminum, for example, to this part. Okay, so this is the process. It's very easy. Okay, with this information you can do everything. You just can repeat this process, adding and changing elements according to your preferences. You can change the glass, although these glasses we created are working, but let's see one glass here, for example, a clear glass here or here. Okay, so you can change the glass. I don't like this one. Let's undo. Okay, and the last thing you can do here before we start exporting these files, I don't know how many minutes we use it to create this, maybe 20 minutes. So, but let's add some more elements here. Let's add some objects. Okay, so let's suppose we're gonna add some people. So some people. Let's put here, for example, I don't know, Emily. Okay, let's add Emily. Emily, it's gonna be here in this kind of balcony, this frontal part of the house. Emily could be speaking, could be idle, could be sitting, could be lying, could be dancing. So we can set what Emily is doing. So in this case, let's suppose Emily is speaking. Okay, but if Emily is speaking with someone, let's add someone to speak with Emily. For example, let's add Michael. Let's add Michael. Let's rotate Michael. Michael is using the cell phone at this moment. This is not so nice. So let's ask to Michael to please pay attention on what Emily is speaking. And now they are talking. Okay. You can also change the color of Michael, the clothes of Michael, or the clothes of Emily. Okay, so here you have different combinations. Let's add a little bit more things here. Let's suppose we have a dog. So here we have a dog. Let's add a dog. Let's rotate the dog. The dog is here barking to the people because he's wanting to to play. So here we have a dog, okay? Just to show things that you can do here, adding more elements, okay? We have some furniture, as I said before, that we created with CYPE architecture. Some of this furniture, we maintain the textures, the original textures. Others, we change the texture, but we can also add more furniture. Let's add something here outside. Let's search for something here. For example, these benches, okay? These benches, I will add a bench here. So I add here a bench. I will spin this bench, will rotate this bench. I will move it here. Let's add another one, 2 benches. I think it's a nice place to add some benches. For example, so here, okay. And as we have a lake, let's add here some vehicle. For example, let's add a boat. For example, let's add a boat, this little boat here. I think it's a good place. I will add a little bit more vegetation here. I think it's some bushes. Maybe these guys here. I'll add some guys here. This one I will spin a little bit to have something more natural. And let's add near the water some fallen trees, maybe near the water. I don't know, somewhere here, just to have something, trying to do something, a dead tree here, maybe a dead tree inside of the water. I don't know if it's gonna be nice. Yeah, something like that, okay? So yeah, this is the process. Here you can use your imagine and create the scene that you want, okay? So now we have this composition, and let's start changing, let's start creating the scenes that we want to export, okay? So to do that, we will use this button here, the media button, and here we can create images, panoramas, videos, phasing, presentation, panorama sets. So I'll create some images. For example, I'll create one image that's going to be this image here, this angle here, okay? So I'll create this image. Then I'll create another one, maybe that could be, for example, let's select here the building, let's orbit in the building. Let's imagine we want to create this one here, for example. So I create only one, image 1 and image 2. There is something nice that we can do here. That is, we can come here in the settings and we can change the weather. This is very nice. For example, we can change the weather from a sunny day to a rainy day. So we can see the rain falling, okay? You can see how the lights change, how it's raining, it's real raining, okay? So you can change from a sunny to a rainy day. This is something nice. We can also change, for example, from the season, from summer to autumn and then winter, okay? This is another filter that is very nice. So let's start. Let's create, for example, one scene or one picture that is a rainy day. So I will jump to the image and create a new one. And the same angle, the same scene I will do with snow, for example. So here we have snow. Okay, so let's come back here to the image and let's create an image. Okay, if we zoom in, we can see the details. It's very nice. We can see, the snow in the roof. We can see the snow in different places. We can see it's very realistic, but this is not the final result. You see the final result in a while. Okay, something that we can create here. Let's come back to the sunny day. Okay, we can change the time of the day. So for example, here in the lighting, it's 6:30, but we could do that at night. Okay, so you can see also the moon. And we didn't in this project, but we could add lights inside of the project using the lights that are here in this place. We'll not do that, but it's a very nice result if you work with lights. Okay, and we can look for the golden hour, for example, looking for the sunset or the sunrise. So it's going to be a very nice result, combining these parameters: the lighting, the location, the weather, the season. So here you can use your imagine. Look that, it's incredible, these colors. Those colors are incredible. Okay, this button is nice too. You can change the moment in the life of the vegetation. It means 0.5, it's 50% of the life or the size of these trees. So you can increase that, not the trees, but also the grass, these bushes. So everything, it's gonna be smaller or growth. Okay, it's a very nice tool too. Let's come back to the summer, or to the autumn, or the without snow. Let's just change here the time because it's too dark. So here in location, let's change to this moment here, for example. This is a nice result. Let's create our last picture. Okay, and let's just create a little video. It's gonna be very easy to create this video. So I'll create a video that will start inside of our building. For example, here in the living room, the first scene is gonna be here. Then we have another scene that's gonna be between Emily and Michael. So let's add here. Then we'll zoom out here to show the lake, and maybe come here a little bit up, add a new scene. Let's orbit in our house through the trees. Let's add a new scene, and let's finish here, for example, in this place, adding a new scene. So when we export, we will have this video. It will come here, we'll move, then we'll rotate. Okay, so we can export this information and create this video. Okay, let's save, and we can do combinations and set images and panoramas and videos and different formats here. When we finish that, we can jump to this last tool, that is the export tool. And here we will select from those elements that we created, that we set it, which element we want to export. For example, I will export the image 2, 3, 4, and 5, okay, in a first moment. So yeah, 3, 3, 4, 5, and I'll click here on Start Export. In my folder, I'll create a new folder that I'll call Images, for example. So let's start exporting. Of course, much more. If we have more pictures or more details, more vegetation, more objects, more geometry, more time we need to export this information. So in this case, we are exporting four pictures. Look, we need 3 minutes to export 4 pictures, or maybe a little bit less, because yeah, we have here a lot of details. We are also working with CYPE Architecture and OpenBIM side. They are working in behind tasks, so we are using some resources of our computer. We are recording this presentation, so there is a lot of things working here, but you can see that it's not too much time. Okay, in maybe 30 minutes we imported the model from CYPE Architecture. We add more elements, we changed colors, textures, shadows, lights, water, snow, everything in less than 30 minutes. So it's a nice result. Okay, if we alternate to the picture, to the tab, let's see here in the images. If we have the first, let's see the result. Look the difference here. This is the first one. Now we can see with details, the water, the boat, the grass, the dog. Okay, we can see the stones here, they are much more realistic. The tiles here, okay, it's much more realistic than we saw in the software. Okay, in a while I think we will see the other images here. I will not export that video, but let me show you here. I have another example that I created. Let me remember where I have it. I will show you the example. It's going to be pretty similar. Let me see here. My projects. This was a little house made by wood. It was the renders, videos, and I have this one here to show you one similar result. Okay, it's not the same, but yeah, you can have an idea about what we can do. So creating scenes and combining scenes with those parameters, we can export videos like that. I will not export our video because we need more minutes to do that, so we don't have that time. Let's come back here to our folder, and let's see the pictures. If we have here the third picture, let's see the rainy version. Okay, and here we have this snow version. It's very nice. Okay, and I think we'll see a last one because Twinmotion is still exporting. I think it's exporting yet. It's supposed that it's exporting. Yes, it's exporting. So in a while we see the last image that we want, that we created. Okay, so this is the idea, this is the process, this is the workflow. It's quite simple. Okay, so if you want work with CYPE to create your architectural model, you can now use CYPE architecture for free to create your model. You can use OpenBIM sites to develop the terrain. You can use OpenBIM layout to create all the graphical information that you have in your project. So all the plans or the sections or the details. Okay, let me open you here just to show you one thing that you can do combining OpenBIM layout with these renders. Let me see if I have OpenBIM layout here installed. Yes, I have it here. So you can introduce these pictures inside of your plans. So you can feed your plans with these images. This is the fourth one. Look at that color, that background. It's very nice. So just to show you here at OpenBIM layout, in OpenBIM layout you can add information from your BIM model directly connected with CYPE architecture, for example, or CYPE-CAD. But you can also import. Sorry, I'm not with the right version to show you, but you can also import these pictures to your plans. Okay, so then you can have a very rich documentation of your project. Okay, I hope you enjoy it. I hope this was a good session. I hope you learned something. Okay, as I said before, I'm not an expert in renders, but without being an expert, I could do that without too much effort. So I think it's a good workflow. Remember, use CYPE 2023A version to use this option. Always export using this button in FBX format, and remember the good practices about the origin, the colors, and classify your model. Use the right colors here. Before then, you almost not need to do big changes when you start your render process. Okay. For me, it was a pleasure to be with you today. I hope you enjoyed. Next week, we will be here again to the next presentations. I hope I see you there.